I wish I didn't care so much about being the nice girl all the time.
She was at the absolute peak of supermodel fame when she did the unthinkable. Tyra Banks walked away from the runway, abandoned million-dollar contracts, and shocked the fashion world by retiring at 31. Critics called it career suicide. The industry thought she'd lost her mind. But here's what they didn't understand about Tyra Banks. While everyone else was focused on the next photo shoot, she was building an empire. While other models worried about aging out of the business, she was creating a business that could last forever. The girl from Inglewood, who'd been bullied for being too tall and too skinny, had a plan that went far beyond magazine covers. She wasn't just conquering the modeling world, she was preparing to own it. So what really drove Tyra Banks to abandon supermodeling at her peak? How did she transform from runway star to media mogul? And why was everyone so shocked when her retirement turned into the smartest career move in fashion history? The answer reveals a level of strategic thinking that the industry had never seen before. Origins and discovery. Inglewood, California, 1973. Tyra Lynn Banks was born into a world where big dreams met harsh realities. Her mother, Carolyn, was a NASA photographer who divorced Tyra's father when she was 6. Money was tight, opportunities were limited, and the fashion world felt like something that happened to other people in other places. Tyra's teenage years were brutal in a way that would later fuel her empathy for struggling young women. She was awkward, gangly, all elbows and knees with a gap between her front teeth that made her self-conscious about smiling. Kids called her Five-Head because of her prominent forehead. She was too tall for her age, too thin for her height, too different for comfort. But something was stirring beneath that awkward exterior. Tyra was watching, learning, absorbing everything about how image and confidence worked. She studied the girls who seemed effortlessly popular, analyzed what made them magnetic, filed away lessons about presentation and self-possession. The transformation happened almost overnight during her junior year of high school. Suddenly, the height that had made her gangly made her statuesque. The features that had seemed too prominent became striking. The girl who'd been teased for being different was now turning heads for being beautiful. At 17, Tyra was discovered at a modeling convention in Los Angeles. But this wasn't a fairy tale moment of instant stardom. She was rejected by 4 different agencies before elite model management saw her potential. Even then, success in America seemed unlikely. The fashion industry had very specific ideas about beauty, and Tyra's look didn't fit the conventional mold. Elites suggested something radical: Paris. The European fashion scene was more open to diverse beauty, more willing to experiment with models who brought something different to the table. Tyra made a decision that would define her career. At 18, she moved to Paris with barely any French language skills and complete determination to succeed. Paris embraced her immediately. Within her first week, she booked 25 shows for Fashion Week. Designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier and Yves Saint Laurent saw something special in her combination of classic beauty and contemporary edge. She wasn't just another pretty face, she was a statement. But even as success came quickly, Tyra was thinking differently than other models. She wasn't just focused on the next booking or the next paycheck. She was studying the business, learning how the industry worked, understanding the machinery that created and destroyed careers. She was already planning her exit strategy before most people even knew her name: Supermodel Dominance and Barriers. By the early 1990s, Tyra had returned to America as a proven commodity, but breaking into the US market presented different challenges. This was the era of the supermodel, when Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, and Christy Turlington ruled the industry. For a young Black model, the barriers were even higher. The pivotal moment came in 1997 when Victoria's Secret offered her something unprecedented: the chance to become their first Black angel. This wasn't just a modeling contract, it was a cultural statement. Victoria's Secret represented mainstream American beauty standards, and Tyra was about to shatter them. Her first Victoria's Secret campaign was revolutionary. Here was a Black woman selling fantasy and sexuality to mainstream America in a way that had never been done before. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Sales numbers proved that diversity wasn't just politically correct, it was profitable. But Tyra wasn't content with being a token. She negotiated aggressively, demanding creative input and strategic involvement in campaigns. While other models showed up and posed, Tyra was in meetings, discussing marketing strategies, understanding target demographics, learning the business from the inside out. The Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue covers came next, cementing her mainstream appeal. But each success came with its own set of challenges. Tyra was constantly fighting for representation, pushing photographers to understand how to light black skin properly, educating makeup artists about working with diverse models. She documented every slight, every moment of ignorance, every barrier she had to overcome. Not for bitterness, but for education. Tyra was building a blueprint for how the industry could change, and she was going to need that knowledge later. Her business education was happening in real time. Cosmetics companies wanted her face, but Tyra negotiated for more than just image rights. She demanded to understand product development, marketing strategies, consumer research. CoverGirl became her classroom for learning how beauty companies actually operated. The runway shows with Versace, Chanel, and other luxury brands taught her about high fashion's economics. She learned about profit margins, production costs, the difference between prestige and profit. While other models saw glamour, Tyra saw spreadsheets. By the early 2000s, she was earning millions annually and was one of the most recognizable faces in fashion. But Tyra was also watching younger models enter the industry, seeing how quickly favorites could fall out of favor. She understood something that many of her peers missed. Modeling careers were inherently temporary. The media training she'd received was paying unexpected dividends. Television appearances, talk show interviews, public speaking engagements. Tyra was comfortable in front of cameras in ways that went beyond posing. She was articulate, charismatic, able to connect with audiences beyond the fashion world. Then, in 2005, at the absolute peak of her modeling career, Tyra made the announcement that shocked everyone. She was retiring from modeling to focus on other ventures. The fashion world reacted with confusion and disbelief. Why would anyone walk away from guaranteed success? But Tyra had been planning this moment for years. She wasn't abandoning her career, she was launching the next phase of a much bigger strategy. The real Tyra Banks story was just beginning: media empire and legacy. While the fashion world was still processing her retirement, Tyra was already 3 moves ahead. In 2003, she'd quietly been developing a television concept that would revolutionize reality TV and change how America talked about beauty forever. America's Next Top Model premiered in May 2003, and nobody saw it coming. This wasn't just another reality competition show. Tyra had created something unprecedented: a business education disguised as entertainment, a platform for diverse representation wrapped in primetime television. But here's what made Tyra's approach genius. She wasn't just the host, she was the creator, executive producer, and creative force behind every aspect of the show. While other models were hired talent, Tyra owned the intellectual property, controlled the narrative, and built an empire. The show's casting was revolutionary. Tyra insisted on diversity that the fashion industry had never embraced. Plus-size models, different ethnicities, unconventional beauty, women who'd been told they weren't model material, suddenly had a platform. This wasn't charity, it was strategy. Tyra understood that television audiences were more diverse than fashion magazine readers. Behind the scenes, she was teaching contestants things modeling agencies never taught: business skills, financial literacy, how to negotiate contracts, how to build personal brands. The challenges weren't just about pretty pictures, they were about understanding the industry as a business. The show became a cultural phenomenon, spawning international versions in over 40 countries. But Tyra retained ownership and licensing control, turning her single television show into a global franchise worth hundreds of millions. Critics initially dismissed her as a reality TV personality, missing the bigger picture entirely. While they were focused on dramatic eliminations and catchphrases like "smize," Tyra was building a media empire that extended far beyond one show. She launched The Tyra Banks Show, a daytime talk show that tackled serious issues while maintaining entertainment value. Body image, self-esteem, social justice, topics that had never been central to beauty and fashion conversations were suddenly primetime content. The Harvard Business School Executive Education Program came in 2012. While some saw it as a publicity stunt, Tyra was serious about formal business education. She understood that credibility in media required more than just success. It required expertise. Her production company, Bankable Productions, expanded beyond reality TV into scripted content, documentaries, and digital media. She wasn't just creating shows. She was building a content empire that could adapt to changing media landscapes. The cosmetics line, the retail ventures, the digital platforms, each project built on lessons learned from the previous one. Tyra approached business like she'd approached modeling, strategically with long-term vision, always thinking several steps ahead. By 2015, Forbes estimated her net worth at over $90 million. The woman who'd walked away from modeling at her peak had built something worth far more than any modeling contract could have provided. But the real impact went beyond money. Tyra had changed industry standards, launched hundreds of careers, and created conversations about beauty and representation that continue today. Models who'd been told they weren't marketable suddenly found agencies calling. Diverse casting became standard practice, not revolutionary exception. The young woman from Inglewood who'd been bullied for being different had turned difference into her greatest asset, building an empire that celebrated everything the traditional fashion world had tried to exclude. And she was just getting started. So what really drove Tyra Banks to abandon supermodeling at her peak? She understood something that the fashion industry refused to acknowledge. The future belonged to creators, not just faces. While her peers fought to extend their modeling careers, Tyra was building something that could outlast any physical changes, any industry trends, any shifts in public taste. She didn't retire from fashion, she graduated from it into something bigger and more sustainable. The truth is, Tyra had been planning her exit strategy from the moment she entered the industry. Every contract negotiation, every business meeting, every media appearance was preparation for the empire she was building. She wasn't just a model who got lucky in television, she was a strategist who used modeling as her launching pad. Her real genius was understanding that representation wasn't just morally right, it was financially smart. While the fashion industry clung to narrow beauty standards, Tyra recognized that diversity was the future of media and marketing. She didn't wait for the industry to change, she forced it to catch up. Today, Tyra continues to evolve and adapt. Her recent ventures into tech startups, educational platforms, and social impact initiatives prove that her ambitions extend far beyond entertainment. She's become what she always intended to be, a business mogul who happened to start in modeling. The girl from Inglewood who was bullied for being too tall became tall enough to see over everyone else's limitations. And that perspective made all the difference. If you enjoyed discovering the strategic genius behind Tyra Banks' empire building, hit that subscribe button for more untold stories about the visionaries who changed everything. I'll see you in the next one.